So growing up, did you experience anything, Kate? Like, so where did you say you grew up? What state?
I grew up in Maine.
Okay.
So
Oh, okay. So that
yes.
even, I mean, even
Yeah.
nationally, there's different cultures, and that's why I have that reaction because Maine is so much different than New York City or LA. So what
Exactly.
was it like growing
Yeah.
up there?
Well, actually, I felt very, very much at home in Maine, and I still very much feel as though that is my home. And I feel very appreciated and welcomed there because that is the Maine culture. So
Mm.
they look more at who the person is and where they come from
Oh, I
than
love that.
really, complexion
I've
or,
been
or
meaning to go up there. I guess I should take a trip.
Exactly. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. And so, really, the shock for me came when I left the state. And I realized that not everywhere in the world was so welcoming in that way. And a lot of people meeting me for the first time hadn't known my family, hadn't known my story, and so they asked a lot of questions. And it was when I left the state that I had to answer all of these questions, and I didn't know how to answer them. And so I turned to my parents, and they explained to me then that it was about race. I was getting questions about
Wow.
race, and I had to learn at a very young age what it meant to be who I am, not only the different races that I'm comprised of, but what it meant to be a multiracial person and kind of stand on my own. And that was not something that my parents could do
teach
for
you,
me.
yeah.
I had to really develop that for myself. And because I am of the age that I was really in the middle of the baby boom, for the biracial baby boom, there wasn't a lot of others, a lot of role models to look up to, a lot of mentors to explain this kind of experience for me. And now I'm seeing, as I get older and more multiracial, students and children and my own children are growing up, it's something that's a normalized part of their experience. They have words to describe it. They have, histories and people to point to. They have the President of the United States to look up to. And so they're not having the same struggles that I did, and that's both a beautiful thing, but also very much a challenging thing for myself, because I feel as we move forward as a society, my experiences are sort of left behind. They're history now. And so there's not a lot of people to relate to in that struggle, even though there's more people to relate to in identity.
Right, right. Well, I like that you say, that you have to describe to people what this is. That's what makes it hidden. Kendall, you talk about the LGBT community, and we've talked before that I was at a diversity conference actually recently, and they talked about the LGBT community. They talked about all the different races, which in America it tends to be, multiculturalism tends to be more about race and not necessarily just about culture. So at the beginning of the day, I was all excited because it seemed fresh and new. It's not like you're in 1980s diversity, right? But toward the end of the day, I got a little bit depressed because it actually was just a rehashing of the same old, the 20th century thinking. And I ended up speaking with the presenter, who was great, and she was really good. Actually, she's more like us. She's very hiddenly diverse, I was about to say, but she has hidden diversity. And we chatted about my experience, and I said, I don't fit in any of these boxes you have up here. So if I don't fit out there and I don't fit in here, it's just, of course I'm going to be depressed, correct? So I said, everything you've talked about, the only thing I can identify with is the LGBT community. And she was just proud and beaming and nodded her head, and I said, but I am not part of that community. And so she kind of was like, what? She didn't know where to go with that. And I think the difference is it's hidden. You have to tell people how to be with you because they don't understand. They're looking visually. And your parents can't help you with it. They don't come from this background. They can't help you as you grow up and explain how things should be different. So for you, Kendall, what was that like? Do you have anything like that?
I totally agree with you. The LGBT community is a very prominent in diversity. It's one that a lot of people can identify with, but they identify with it a little later in life than most. Like a TCK, a third culture kid, someone who's experiencing that journey, living somewhere out of their passport culture. It's a lot easier for them to recognize, okay, I don't exactly assimilate with everyone around me, but there's some kind of connection I have with them. And it's the same thing with this community, and that's why I relate so well to TCKs, because this community is something that is not something you can just tell by looking at someone, and it's not something that you should be able to tell by looking at someone.
Right.
You shouldn't make assumptions, That's another conversation. But what I'm trying to get at is that hidden diversity is a beautiful thing because it allows you to express yourself in your own journey. And whether you identify as someone in the community or you are a TCK or you've grown up with different kind of parents, it doesn't matter because it allows you to be yourself and say, I identify this way, and that gives me a connection with you. You may have a completely different story than me, but because there's something about us that makes us unique that isn't...
We're actually kind of the same.
Exactly, something that isn't typically experienced by a lot of people, that gives us some kind of connection. And it's great because then communities can intersect.
Yes.
And
yes.
That's fun.
I want to piggyback a little bit because I have noticed in my own experience somewhat of a flip side to that beauty, which, for me, it's such a wonderful and empowering thing to be able to choose my own identity, to say this is who I am and to express myself how I choose. But what I find sometimes is a resistance towards that freedom of choice where somebody can say, I don't get to choose who I am. I'm just who I am. Why do you think that you can just move and shift? And, why is it okay for you to call yourself Andrea with these people, but Andrea with these other people? Why is that okay? And I've gotten a lot of resistance from that, which I find, disappointing because it doesn't harm anyone else. It's just who I am. I'm expressing myself. So what harm is there in that?
I've had that, and I had to tell people, it's my name. I get to tell you how to say it. So now you're quiet over there, the only man at the table. Tell us, your experience was a little bit different than everyone else, so tell us about that.
Definitely.
Different but the same,
So yeah, kind of just what I said before. I just grew up in a pretty dominantly Caucasian neighborhood, but I went to school in inner city schools.
So how was that? Did you have to shift, or did you feel like you had to shift back and forth?
Yeah, kind of. It was kind of just how I grew up, though, because starting from when I was 5 years old, I was with people from all around the world going to school every day, 5 days a week. So it wasn't anything, it wasn't like a culture shock or anything for me. It was just, I had friends from all around the world, and I just kind of grew up that way. And my parents are very accepting of all ethnicities and races and cultures and everything. So I never had a clash with any of that. So it wasn't weird to me or anything like that. That's just how I grew up and how I lived.
See, and this is how the world should be.
Right.
This is how the world should be. So that brings us to the end of the program today. We'll have many more times to talk about hidden diversity, what it means, and what it means for the 21st century. But until then, remember that at Cultures, we speak your language.